And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, Interim Director at WEIU TV and Radio. My guest today is Dr. Eric Davidson. He's also an Interim Director for EIU Health and Counseling Services. Welcome, Dr. Davidson.
Hi, Jeff.
I appreciate you calling in. We are following all the social distancing rules here at Issues and Attitudes. Appreciate you calling in today and talking a little bit about Eastern's response to the pandemic, sir. So I guess we'll just start off, and I'll just let you talk about your thoughts on where we are right now and the status of the pandemic according to from EIU's standpoint.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think at this point in time, with all the actions that we have taken as a university, there is some belief that things should be kind of quieting down. And I don't necessarily think that's the case. We've been able to make some decisions that allowed our students to be at home, to learn remotely, to have our faculty be able to provide that instruction remotely. We've had most of our campus population that were living on campus be off campus, but now we're really looking to the future, trying to discern what Governor Pritzker may have in store with his executive orders and what his expectations will be following April 30th. How that will affect our work this summer, and we're also beginning to start the conversations of what fall will look like. So, in some ways, I like to think that we're still in the middle of everything.
Yeah, and I guess that's the question I wanted to ask. Is Governor Pritzker the one who really is going to? Will you guys always follow his guidelines for expectations from the Eastern Illinois standpoint?
Right now, we are relying on really two primary sources.
Okay.
One would be the federal level, and that would be what comes out of President Trump's task force, as well as the guidelines and recommendations that the Center for Disease Control and Prevention offer. And then we are also highly in tune with Governor Pritzker, his executive orders, and kind of where he is leading us as a state. So, we're getting some input and feedback and guidance from both the federal and the state level. Locally, we also are in connection with Coles County Health Department. We're having frequent conversations with them when we're not able to find guidance, and they in turn have done a great job of answering our questions. And if they've not been able to answer the questions, they've been able to get answers for us through the Illinois Department of Public Health. So, a lot of different guidance and feedback coming from many different levels.
Okay, thank you. All members of the EIU community, for those of us who are reporting to work on campus, are supposed to self-examine each day. Take us through that process, please, so people know what to do.
Those of us who are considered essential and critical workers are really encouraged to do several things. The most important thing is to take their temperature. And if that temperature is over 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 degrees Celsius, that is definitely a clear indicative warning that the person should probably call in sick and not come to work. Additionally, if they are having upper respiratory problems, coughing, sore throat, things of that nature, again, that would be another indication, along with the fever, that they should be staying home. That was early guidance that was given. Initially, the early guidance would say if you had those symptoms, you should stay home and quarantine for 14 days. The CDC has given some new guidance that basically says critical and essential workers, as long as if they have been exposed to someone or believe that they have been exposed to someone with COVID or COVID-like symptoms, they should still return to work, wear a mask, take their temperature, assess those other symptoms, and once they become symptomatic, go home and not report to work.
Okay. What changes have you made at the health center? I mean, is it still open for the students who are around? How's the operation there?
Yeah, definitely. Some big changes. Our medical clinic is open as well as our counseling clinic. Staff are reporting Monday through Friday. We're open from 8 to 12 and 1 to 4:30. No one else is in the building because everyone else is working remotely. So we have closed down all the entrances except for the south entrance. Anyone entering the building comes in that way. They are stopped by a nurse. They take their temperature, they're screened, and then depending upon what they're presenting with dictates what course of action we take. For the medical clinic and the counseling clinic, we have also gone to where students, if they want to be seen, we require them to call in. That way we can do phone assessment and triage over the phone. For those that are healthy and well, they're asked to come and make appointments between 8 and 9 every weekday, as well as 9 to 12 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, with the hopes that we get folks that need immunizations and non-upper respiratory illnesses in, and we minimize their possible connection to those that might have COVID or other upper respiratory symptoms. Our counseling clinic is still seeing students in the counseling clinic. They have gone to a telecounseling mode of service provision. So they're mainly calling clients and having counseling over the phone. They're beginning to explore doing so over Zoom. So for all purposes, we're still open and we are seeing students. With fewer students on campus, we aren't seeing as many students, but we have taken all the precautions that we can to make it safe for our staff and to make it safe for our student users.
Do you anticipate further changes as the summer gets here, or are we going to kind of go along with this path?
You know, the thing about this pandemic is everything is always changing and everything is always evolving, and in some ways we would head a direction, then we'd have to stop and kind of go a different direction. So clinically, I would like to think that we're kind of on a trajectory where we won't see many changes. But if we do make changes, it will all be dependent upon the advice and counsel from the CDC, the Illinois Department of Public Health, Coles County Health Department, you know, all of those groups that we talked about earlier during the interview.
Okay. One of the things that went on this weekend, there was a lot of pushback to some of the things going on. Have you seen any pushback locally, or are people really following the rules, you think, here in the eastern community?
You know, I've tried to be a good role model and stay home as much as I can, so I really haven't been out. I have been kind of amazed when I've gone grocery shopping, how many people are still out and about getting grocery shopping. The thing that I like to say is that I'm seeing more and more people wearing face masks, more and more people wearing gloves, people making sure that they're hand sanitizing. So, you know, it's not everybody. It needs to be everybody. But I'm happy with the increases that I've seen there. The other place that I've been at would be the trails out near Lake Charleston. My family and I live somewhat close to the lake, and it's been interesting to see how many more people seem to be accessing those facilities. My wife and I went for a walk yesterday, and she was even kind of amazed at how few people were wearing face masks. There weren't a lot of people, and she goes, I really thought a lot more people would be wearing masks. So
we had Dr. Oh, sorry, excuse me, go ahead.
Oh, so you know, it's I think we've seen some positive gains and some positive behaviors, but we still have a long way to go.
We had Dr. Burton on from Sarah Bush a couple weeks ago, and he really did recommend that all people, when you leave your house, wear masks and gloves. Is that a recommendation that Eric Davidson would also agree with?
I think so. I would definitely say yes on my perspective. The other thing, I try to listen to the governor's press briefing every day, and that question came up yesterday. So one of my predictions, and we'll have to see if my magic ball is right or not, but I suspect that when the governor gets around to releasing us from shelter-in-place, stay-at-home, I wouldn't be surprised if one of the executive orders that comes out would be, if you're out and about, that you wear a mask.
Okay. Where do you also turn to for like personal advice if you're having one of those? I mean, because the anxiety and a little bit of depression kind of hits us all. What do you do to kind of pick yourself up so you can be a voice of positivity for EIU?
I love 80s music.
We'd get along well.
Absolute 80s music and dueling piano. So I listen to WEIU. I go online. I look for obscure 80s videos that are one-hit wonders that no one else would have an interest in. And lately what I've been doing is I've been looking for bands and acts that are giving virtual online performances for free. So one of my favorite cover bands is Dr. Shivegas from the St. Louis area, and they've been doing an online show every Friday night about 6 o'clock. So I've been connecting with my music. The other thing that I've been doing is I've been connecting with friends and classmates, folks that I haven't really talked to in months, if not years, and have engaged the video chatting function on social media, and I've been able to catch up with some friends that I'd not talked to in a long, long time. So that's helped. And then there's just, I have children, so my wife and I, we'll play board games. We'll make sure that we're having dinner together. We're doing yard work together. So, trying to maintain a life of balance and just not focusing on work and not just focusing on COVID.
Because I think mental health is the other thing that has really become top of mind awareness, is how people keep their mental health correct. And obviously we're on a campus and there's some students around, so that's one of the big things is mental health has become the kind of the secondary issue to us preparing, in the preparation of against COVID. Very
much so. I mean, even before COVID, mental health was a significant concern for the campus and for our students. And I think one of the aspects of what we're going through is so unlike any other emergency management event that we've had as a campus, as a state, as a nation. For those that have been in the Charleston area for a while, they may remember the Clem Hall fire. That was a significant traumatic event for our campus. The difference is, eventually the building the fire was put out and we could collect and gather and move forward and press forward in the future. This event of COVID continues to linger, and there really isn't any vision of when it might be over. Will it be over in May? Will it be over this summer? Will it be over next fall? That's really hard to say, and I think that lingering impact and that uncertainty, as well as the fear of, will I get the virus? If I get the virus, what will it do to me? What will it do to my loved ones? There's just a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty often fuels the fire of fear and anxiety.
I think at last check in Coles County, there were 16 cases of COVID. 2 people have been returned to health, for lack of a better way to say that. Do you think that's where you thought the numbers would be, or did you think we'd have more or less at this time?
I think we have more. I mean, this is the question that everyone's talking about. Are our numbers accurate? Are the numbers low? I anticipate that number to start going up as testing becomes more available. Early on, we were limited in the amount of tests that we had in the region, the materials needed to test. Those supplies, from what I'm hearing, seem to be increasing. So I anticipate that we'll have increased numbers. There's talk about an antibody test being available. So, when that test becomes more available and widely distributed, we'll be able to know whether or not a person has been exposed to the virus. We still don't know what the presence of antibodies will mean. Will it mean that a person is immune, and will they be immune to the native virus or any of the strains that it might have been mutating to? Will it mean that a person is immune from catching it again? Being that the virus is still so new and novel, we don't have those answers yet. So I have been predicting that we'll see a peak, we'll hit the curve, but it wouldn't surprise me if we end up seeing second and third and possibly even fourth or fifth waves in the coming months.
We're talking to Interim Director of EIU Health and Counseling Services at EIU, Dr. Eric Davidson. Dr. Davidson, besides your department, I know you're in touch with some of the other things going on campus. How is the campus staying clean, keeping clean, and what things have been put in place to make sure that we're all safe?
Definitely. Our building service workers have been identified as a critical and essential workforce population on campus, so those individuals still report to work every day. So they are busy cleaning the buildings and making sure.
I think we might have just lost. Oh, there you go. We lost you for a second. Go ahead, sir.
A lot of BSWs are communicating with the departments in the facilities that they work with to try to get a better feel for who may be coming and going, and making sure that if someone has entered into an area, that those areas are specifically clean. Many of the buildings on campus have been locked, so that way we're just not getting a lot of unknown entry, and that is definitely helping the BSWs keep on top of things as well. Between the BSWs and facility, BSWs and housing, the BSWs and the union, the leaders of those areas have been connecting and talking and making sure that they're reviewing CDC guidelines from the state, different professional standards, and kind of making sure that they're all on the same page. Our staff and procurement have been fantastic. Many people have probably heard of the shortages of personal protective equipment, hand sanitizer, cleaner, those types of things. We have been certainly in that boat, but our procurement people have just provided a Herculean effort to work to get us materials and find vendors that can provide that. So, everybody is using a consistent cleaner, a consistent sanitizer. The amount of work going in to keep campus clean at this point in time has just been astronomical, and the folks have been doing a phenomenal job.
As we possibly inch closer to staying for a stay-at-home order being lifted, would you prefer that the state do it in segments and not all at once? Maybe a few select type businesses open partially, or how would you do it if you were sitting in Springfield to feel the safest?
Yeah, I think when it comes time for it to transition, I think we're going to have to transition in stages. I don't think it can be an all or nothing. I think, if they drop it on April 30th and then everybody thinks May 1st, which is a Friday, everybody can return to work, everybody can start going out to eat again, people can go to the parks. I think it will kind of negate what we've been trying to do for the past 4 to 6 weeks. And I think, if it's completely released, then we will end up seeing, a large secondary wave. I was looking at some data and some information from 1918 in Colorado with the flu of 1918, and they were pretty progressive at the time with a lot of the things that they were doing, and they ended up releasing it, and I kind of got the impression that they kind of released everything back to normal. And within a few weeks, they saw a peak that was actually larger than what the peak had originally been. So I think we're going to have to do it in stages. I think it probably will be a little bit more drawn out than what people would like. And I think a large part of that is in many ways, at this point in time, COVID does not seem like it's similar to the seasonal flu. We're beginning to think that increased temperatures really do not impact COVID the way that increased temperatures affect influenza.
Okay. What is your working relationship with area hospitals and stuff? Do you work hand in hand with them, or do you share information? How is that process going with?
Right. You talked about having Dr. Burton on a few weeks ago. Yeah. My staff have been talking with him quite a bit. to get a feel for what the emergency department is seeing, how they're diagnosing. So Dr. Burton and his staff have just been phenomenal. We've really appreciated the communications that we've gotten from him. My staff, most of them are local, have grown up in the region. Many of them have also been employed in other healthcare systems in the region, so they also have their informal networks. So, they've stayed in contact with their colleagues at their former places of employment. So, we've been able to exchange information back and forth, which has been helpful. Earlier, I talked about the Coles County Health Department. I feel like I'm emailing those folks almost every day with a question. And then I know our clinical staff have been talking to their nurses as we prepare for the time when we end up having a student walking in that we really do suspect has COVID.
That's a good answer. One of the things that everybody's really worried about is I think we all think we can get through this semester. Summer is not that big a deal in terms of people on campus, but in the fall, what are we going to be able to say to the parents and guardians of EIU students that they're going to be able to come back to a healthy campus and an in-person teaching campus?
Yeah. Well, first I would say, even though the university has decided to move instruction online for summer, we're still going to be impacted. We host a lot of summer camps. And many of those camps have made decisions to not have camp this summer. Others are in the process of trying to make a decision. So, even if things are opened up and we try to return to normal outside of having the classes online, I think we're going to see some impact on campus and on the campus community this summer. As for fall, different institutions across the nation are just now beginning to have conversations about what fall may look like, how it may come about, what we may do. At this point in time, the conversation that we've been having is that we will open as we normally do in August. It is possible that we may open the residence halls a day earlier and let our new and incoming students come to campus a day earlier to catch up on some of the orientation activities that we're not going to be able to provide to them through a virtual orientation. But at this point in time, it looks as if we're going to opt for a regular semester if possible. If that becomes the case, then my medical clinic staff will be preparing and beefing up for a second or third wave as it might go through our student population. Many of the things that we've been doing for the past few weeks in terms of our internal protocols and policies, will probably continue to carry forth with slight modifications. It's just really hard to predict what's going to happen. I was on a meeting with other health service directors earlier this week, and everyone's wish is to kind of come back and do face-to-face instruction and have a residential campus. But some said, well, we're kind of questioning that. So I think in the coming weeks, the university will be looking more toward that. And we'll have a better feel for the different contingencies that we might carry out depending upon what we end up seeing.
Did you ever think you'd be answering these type of questions in the world we live in 2020?
Not to this level. In the back of my mind, I always worried about having like a mumps outbreak or a measles outbreak, something along those lines, but nothing to the point where, we would more or less reframe learning, move it to a different instructional format, ask our students to go home and not come back. Never in my life would I have thought about such a scenario.
We have a couple minutes left with Dr. Eric Davidson of Eastern Illinois University. Anything that I've forgotten that you would love to get out there information-wise? This is what we're doing almost every weekend here on Issues and Attitudes. There's something I forgot. Go ahead.
The one thing, and I know that there has been some press coverage, but I would really like to applaud the work of Dr. Bola and several of our other faculty. Our lab director, Roger Ostoff, was able to connect that group of faculty with a group out at Sarah Bush. And Sarah Bush was able to provide materials for that group of faculty to produce viral medium transport. And that would be the fluid that would be in a vial that would not necessarily kill a virus, but also not allow it to grow, so it would just kind of sustain it in its current state. So that way it could be taken for testing. That group of faculty have been able to create 10 liters of the viral medium transport, and from that they were able to fill approximately 3,400 vials.
Oh, wow.
Which will now be used by Sarah Bush for COVID testing, and that helps enhance their capacity. So that is just an exciting collaboration. It was a win-win-win for everyone, and I'd really like to see those faculty members get a lot more kudos and applause for their efforts.
That's fantastic news. I had not heard all that.
It's really needed.
And giving blood. You're supposed to give blood if you can right now, correct?
Yes, that is definitely a need. I know that they are short of the blood supply, so if it is possible, do so. I've got a good friend from high school who has given several gallons over the course of his life, and he had some Facebook photos of him going in, and he said it was a little bit different being masked and gloved, but he said it was well worth it, and I would encourage everybody to do that.
I'll give you the last comment on this. How do people not panic? How do you keep people from not panicking right now?
For me, I'm a big fan of providing information in a timely manner, being honest, being transparent. I also tend to be a moderate, so I try not to get too far on one side or too far on the left, and really kind of look at what is in the middle and kind of assessing things like that. So, I'd say find information from reliable sources, look at information from different sources, and try to find the center line where that information is to kind of find the reality in the middle.
Okay.
The other thing I would say is, be easy on yourself. This is an unprecedented time, and there are a lot of expectations, and no one can be perfect.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you calling in so much, Dr. Davidson, and we appreciate it. Have a great day.
You bet. Thanks, Jeff.